It's the Late Showgram with Jim Richards on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
The boss asked me today if I'm prepared to go to 5 o'clock in the morning covering the election. I was born prepared, I tell you. So that will be Monday into Tuesday. So it'll be actually Tuesday morning. We'll be here Monday morning, which is Sunday night into Monday morning. I haven't even still figured it out yet. This is Friday to me for a lot of people. Do you think of this as Friday or do you think of this as Thursday, David?
It's Thursday night. But it's technically, if it's just you're looking at the day in and of itself, it's Friday.
Just realized we might get into another half an hour conversation about what day it is. I was like panicking for a second. All right. By the way, Greg, thank you very much for calling. That was a great call. If we can get somebody now who lived in a van, or we would take that phone call too, or call in a bit when I feel like I'm eating into David's time with people talking about how they cleaned up dead bodies. But you brought it up, David.
I got lots of time, Jim. I'm not worried. I'm here every night. You know, should I be here on election night? Probably not. I'm kind of an idiot when it comes to that stuff. But we'll talk. We'll talk off air. We'll see if it works. But tonight, Jim, I wanted to ask you, and maybe have you ask me, some interesting questions to get to know a friend, a family member, a lover, a coworker, a nemesis, or an ex-wife.
Did I ask you back the longest 5 minutes in your life? I don't think I did.
It's either a time when I was in severe turbulence in an airplane where people were crying and shouting, or it was the first time I tried stand-up comedy. And now that was only a 3-minute set, but I think the 2 minutes leading up to them calling my name was actually worse than the set itself. The set itself was like, I was so nervous. It was just a whirlwind. I packed the audience with my friends, so like they were just laughing, even though I didn't know how to tell a joke. Not that I do now. But the 2 minutes before, I was ready to die, Jim. I was ready to die.
Yeah. I've only done stand-up once, but that was the same way. Also,
well, now I want to hear about that.
It was a long time ago. It was between jobs, and I just decided that I'd write some stuff down and go down on a open mic night. And I had fun, but the same thing that you did, I just stacked it with everybody that I knew.
Yeah.
And so, it seemed like I was the funniest guy in the world. I'm sure I was not. And then I got a job. I was like, I'm going to do this. And my parents were like, oh, God, you can't do that. Please, we're not going to support you for the rest of your life. And then I got a job at a sports radio station. Yes, wow. At a sports radio station. And the rest, and that's the story on how I met my first wife.
Your first ex-wife, Jim.
Yeah, my first ex-wife.
That's the kind of woman I want to be divorced to. I hope we're doing okay for you, May. Caller earlier tonight, who people listening now don't need any context for. Jim,
I'm sure she enjoyed the 10 minutes on death site cleanup. And that's no disrespect to Greg. If he was listening earlier in the day, we heard from somebody who's got cancer who likes to laugh. So that's what we mean by that.
All right. Jim, what is a profession you admire but you could never do? You could never be a part of it.
Geez, right now would be a frontline worker, a nurse or a doctor. That might be too easy. But what about a profession that I could never do? You know, there's some parts of this business that I wish that because I'm dyslexic that I would not be good at, like reading a teleprompter or something like that would be something that I wouldn't be very good at. So or like a voiceover guy getting lots of money, reading commercials and that sort of thing. The producers of that sort of who do that are too frustrated by my dyslexia, as am I. So those are some of the things that I would maybe like to do, but I feel kind of a little hand-tied by dyslexia. So I would name those two things, but right now it's the doctors. Imagine if I was a doctor who couldn't read and I kept on messing up. I would go in and I'd be like, pick up the little clipboard and I'd start reading what was wrong with somebody. And I was like, oh, and then they'd misdiagnose. Well, I would read it wrong and think they had something else, give them medication, and then I would be in jail for malpractice.
Yeah, I'm more worried about me in that case. Like, I get to the hospital, I need a quintuple bypass, and just as they're putting me under, they're like, here's your surgeon, it's Dr. Jim Richards. And then the drugs kick in. Not cool. Mine would be like people who design airplanes, medical equipment, anything where a flaw can cost lives. Like, I used to write software. I would never want to work on like airplane navigation control, medical, like a cancer radiation machine. Like, I wouldn't want to work on that because if I make a bug in regular software, it just costs a company money. But if I make a bug in that kind of stuff, people die. So
so any of the software that you made was never used in medical equipment or anything?
In undergrad, I wrote a piece of, I was on a team, like a research team that was doing some stuff with like images, diagnosing like kidney problems, but I was just a very junior person on that team. So that's when I realized I didn't want to work on it, because if we got it wrong, we'd be misdiagnosing people with kidney issues. And just the ones.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's kind of cool software, but I'm realizing as I explain it to you that I won't go into it.
I was really excited by it. It was great.
Well, I could explain it, but then I won't.
Yeah, no, please take some time explaining it a little bit more.
How the kidney software works, I'm not going to do it.
Yes, no.
How medical imaging software works, not going to do it. Jim,
do it for me.
Do it for you. Well, I'll do the quick version. Apparently a kidney, if you like drink a glass of orange juice, or you're like haven't eaten, or you ate a big meal, your kidney can look very different day to day. So if you get a CT scan on a kidney and as he drinks his McDonald's, Jim is currently eating McDonald's. Yes, if you binge McDonald's, your kidney might look different one day to the next. So the problem is, if your kidney gets scanned and there's something of note in there, like a lump or a malformity or something, they want to track it, but it's not like a mole on your skin where they can just take a picture of it and then come back a year later and see if it grew. They take one CT scan of the kidney and then they take the next one. But the problem is the kidney can be very different from those 2 days. So what we were doing was stretching the first image of the kidney and contorting it in a way so that it would match the second image.
Yep.
And then you could check if the formation or whatever would match in size, or if in fact it had grown. That's what I did.
Great story.
I explained it, and when I say I did it, I mean I was on a team of like 20 students, and I was an undergrad, so mostly I got graduate students coffee.
All right.
That's what I did, Jim.
Okay. No, it was great. It was a good story. And very useful. I mean, doing important work, and now you're doing this. So your life is going in the wrong direction, is all I'm saying. Congratulations.
Well, we're making people happy, Jim. We're making person happy.
One person happy.
Our one listener out there is ecstatic with us. Can you believe it? News at 11. Jim, what is something about yourself that's completely different now than you were 10 years ago?
Whoa, what is different now than it was 10 years ago? I think, is it sad if the answer is nothing? I just think I understand myself a little bit better. I don't think that 10 years ago I knew anything about anxiety, or it kind of sounds stupid. I mean, I knew how I had this feeling, but I had no idea what anxiety was. I had no idea, never really even had depression issues until probably 10 years ago. And just trying to figure that out and figure out what works for me, that would be what is different about me. Yeah. How about you?
You're more in tune with oneself. I would say I'm less scared of the world. Like, public speaking used to be an issue for me 10 years ago. Before I ever tried comedy, like, I'd be scared to give a talk at work with 10 people in the room. I'd get so worked up. I'd be sweating. I'd have trouble sleeping. And then I just went so far in the other direction and got good at got experience with public speaking. Good's another issue.
Does that just come from repeatedly doing it, or did you take Toastmasters or something, or you just, because you have to do it all the time, you don't have time to have anxiety about it?
Yeah, no, it's time behind the wheel. Time behind the wheel.
Time behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Good way to put it. Time behind the wheel.
Yeah, Jim. Time behind the wheel. Jim, what is the most selfless thing that you have ever done?
What are you laughing for?
It's just a cruel question, because if you don't have a good answer, you'll seem like a jerk.
Well, I think a lot of people say that if this is something that you do and you do it for the right reasons, you don't need to tell anybody about it. But I got to know this guy because for like 5 years, and I feel bad now that I don't go to work, but I think I've told you this story before. About 5 years straight, I would buy a guy a coffee and a breakfast sandwich every single morning outside of the coffee shop that I would go to. And people are like, you know how much money you're spending on that? And I was like, probably $30 a week. And then one day he gave me a gold chain. And
$1,560 is $30 a week, Jim, a year.
Wow. What the hell is that?
Bug? A bug?
I picked up a bug thinking it was something else, but it was a bug. So yeah, I did that for about, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know how long it was. And the guy gave me this gold chain, and I started wearing like a rapper, this gold chain. That wasn't gold. Everybody was like, how could you take it from him? But he wanted me to have it, and it would be an insult for him, to him, if I didn't take it. So I wore it for a while. I don't know what happened to it. My neck got all green, and but it did mean something to me. I guess it didn't mean enough to me that I would know where it is right now, but it did mean something to me.
Yeah. Well, it was probably copper if it made your neck green, Jim.
Yeah. All right. I will ask you that in a moment, if that's okay. Or do you want to answer now? You got 20 seconds.
No, mine's, it's going to take a minute. It won't take
All
more
right.
than a minute, but we got about 5 seconds here, so what am I going to do?
Okay. David Cooper will find out the most selfless thing that he's ever done. I'm pretty sure that was the question. And then don't forget, in about 35 minutes, jesting the headlines of the week.
You're listening to The Late Showgram with Jim Richards on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
David Cooper is with us. This is our Friday version. Hope everybody has a great weekend. David, we're asking questions. The question that what was the question that you just asked me, David? It was, I think I gave a good answer.
The most selfless thing you've done, Jim.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
answer
Let me
was
start all
giving a
over again
homeless
with my
guy-
story.
Yeah.
I gave a sandwich to a homeless guy for 3 years. It was one sandwich, and he had to take it one bite a day.
$1,560 a year you spent on him for 3 years, which is, are you ready for it? A grand total of $4,600 and $4,680.
Wow.
$4,680. I know how math works, Jim.
Yikes. Okay. What can you do about that? Would still probably do it again. Although, yes. David, what do you? What's your selfless act that nobody knows about?
Yeah, I used to mentor people from like different backgrounds, often underprivileged backgrounds, to try to break careers into
I thought you meant
Silicon
different
Valley.
religions.
What?
From different backgrounds. Never
Like
mind.
not white dudes that are most people in software engineering are white dudes.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
That's cool.
But yeah, I mentored at this like school that taught people how to do it, and they didn't need to go to undergrad. Like it was sort of a practical school, like an apprenticeship. And I mentored, I think 17 or 18 students. Some of them, one girl who I mentored, she got a job at like Uber, and when she got it, she sent me flowers, and she called me and she was crying. She's like, now I can like pay off my parents' mortgage, like they were going to be foreclosed on, like crazy.
She got a good job at Uber, not like a
software engineer, Jim. These jobs start at like 120, 150 American. It's crazy. She went from babysitting
good for
to that.
her. That's great.
Yeah. Can you believe that? That's probably the most selfless thing I did. I didn't realize it at the time. I just liked hearing myself talk, and I liked hearing myself talk about, nerdy things. But I guess I helped people along the way.
Do you think, I don't know anything about coding. I do know that I think they're teaching it in school now, right? It should be just like knowing how to, I don't know, like it should be like learning how to read or do basic math, that sort of thing. Is it something that you think everybody who's young should learn how to do to a certain extent?
Yeah, I think so. I think the career opportunities are really lucrative, and there's no shortage of new companies, and people keep saying there's eventually the supply of young people who are learning the trade is going to outweigh the demand, but I don't see salaries going down. I don't see people widely unemployed in the field. So yes.
Is
Why
it
not?
hard?
It depends. Like, for example, my mom doesn't understand how computers work. So when people tell her email's easy, word processing is easy, all this stuff is easy, it is. But it requires a basic computer literacy. Like, you need to know what a right click is. You need to know what a window is. You need to know what the concept of maximizing a window, of focus, of what an input looks like, an input box where you type in something. All of these things that if you know how to do them all, things become easy. But if you don't have that basic literacy, it's hard. Coding's just like that. If you have a lot of computer literacy, learning to code is pretty easy. If you've got very little, it's quite difficult.
But if you're a coding kind of genius in high school, do you learn anything more about it when you go to university, or when you go to, where did you learn most of it? In high school, or when you were young, or when you went to college or university?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't need to go to university for it. I think a lot of people with really, really, really lucrative careers who are very senior people at these organizations don't go to college for it. There's often two streams of it. There's types of the discipline where you don't need to go to school, and then there's types where school really helps. That sort of like more theory-oriented work. So it's yes and no. If you want to like design really theoretical kind of stuff, then yes, it helps a lot. It helped me. If you just want to, build websites, this kind of stuff, build an app, no, not at all.
I love that story, helping out that person get that job at Uber. If she's got $1,500 a year to send a guy for a sandwich, she should do that.
1,560.
1,560. All right. List called the most common, unusual things that people do in the bathroom. Do you go to the bath? Like, do you you live in it looks like a pretty good size apartment in New York City, but is there ever a time when you're like, I got to get away and I'm going to the bathroom for a little while? Is that a thing for you?
Like to like masturbate, Jim? What are you saying?
I'm saying to get away from your girlfriend, or maybe you're having a fight.
I spend a lot of time in there. I'm on my phone. I spend probably 30 minutes a day in the toilet, 30 to 60 minutes a day.
All right. Do you have any guesses of what's on this list for the most common but maybe unusual things that people do in the washroom?
I have a lot of guesses. Pick their nose. Is it on there?
It's not. Pick their nose is not on here.
Pick their noses. That should be on there. I mean, everyone who does it and pretends that they don't, they do it.
They
on
go
the
to
toilet.
the washroom to do it?
Well, it's just your private. It's a private space in there. You're not around anyone. I can't pick my nose in front of my girlfriend. She knows I pick my nose, but I won't do it in front of her. So what do I got? I got the bathroom.
All right. Okay. So do you want to keep going, and we'll see if you can get any of these things? You ever had sex in the washroom? It's number 3 on the list.
Yeah, I've done that.
I've not done that.
Never done that, Jim?
Never done that. Not in the bath. Oh, in the shower. Yes, that's the shower's in the bathroom. Yes, that's true.
No, I've done it on someone sitting on the sink kind of thing. I've done that.
Okay, I've not done that. Reading a book.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a copy of the Constitution on my toilet. On the lid, I got a copy, like a bound copy of the Constitution. I've reread it. So the U.S.
Yeah. Okay. This list might not be that great. Talking on the phone, trying on new clothes, falling asleep in the tub.
That sounds dangerous.
It does sound very dangerous.
You could drown.
Enjoying your morning coffee.
Gross.
Hanging things up to dry. And the number one is, now you said you cried after you didn't get that job at that New York radio station. Did you cry in the washroom? Because number 1 is crying in the washroom.
I have cried in the bathroom. I cried on the street, Jim. I was walking and I cried on the street, in the busy street on Houston Street in Lower Manhattan. I was crying, and I like crying in public. It's fun. It freaks people out.
When was the other time you cried in public?
I cry on planes a lot. I cry in movies, and I watch sad movies on planes to specifically cry. And I just do it. It's like a power move. Like, I'll just stare at people. I don't care that you're judging me. I'm a confident crier. If you cry confidently, you don't come off as a small person. You come off
cried
as a big person.
Once when I was getting my car towed away. Like the guy was like putting the tow truck driver was putting my car up. And I was like crying, and he looks at me and goes, "Dude, I'd just come back from a service at St. Mike's Hospital in Toronto after they had to pull the plug on a woman that I was dating. back in the early 2000s. The girl that I was dating died. And so I went to this service and I was crying nonstop. But I thought the funny thing looking back at it was that the guy who was towing my car thought that me getting towed was the reason that I was crying. So he's like, I usually don't do this. And I'm like, I don't either. And he takes my car down. But so I didn't have to pay to get it out of impound, but I did still have to pay the ticket. Which was, I don't know, about $30.
Fun fact, if a tow truck has your car on the back and they say, we can't release it, I have to take it to the impound, you can always bribe them. I've bribed my way out of 2 towings like that. And it's expensive, but it's cheaper than going to the impound lot. So
what is it? What did you give him? Like 200, 250?
100. Both in Toronto, twice
100?
just 100. Crisp 100. Well, maybe 520s. But I bribed my way up.
Because he's probably not making that, right? He's the impound lot. Like what? I don't know what the cut would be that he would get, but it's probably not $100.
I think it's just a risk of getting in trouble. But if the money's good enough, then yeah. And you still get the ticket. Like both times when they lowered the car, I still had the ticket on my dash, but I didn't have to deal with an impound. So
yeah, which is a pain in the ass because you probably have to take a taxi out to the middle of nowhere, and then you have to get the car and deal with the person. And yes, exactly.
It's a whole thing, Jim.
It is a thing. David, I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you very much for another fantastic week. And I don't know, I think we failed May tonight. I do. I think both of us. But more on Sunday into Monday, so we look forward to seeing you.
Yes, sir. We'll have fun. We won't let May down then.
The Late Showgram continues on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
Richard Krause, does he love these movies? He's one of Canada's best movie reviewers. He's got some... the dumb thing about the Toronto Canadian Film Festival that you hear everybody gasbagging about in Toronto is that some of the movies that are in the film festival, like, they open this weekend. So while the festival is almost still on, it's not like... Anyway, I always found it unusual that people would race out of their house to go to a movie that's going to be out during a festival and pay a festival price for a movie that you could see in 2 days, probably streaming, as a matter of fact. But Stacey Kennedy joins us right now. She called earlier. She is... sleeping and living outside of Doug Ford's constituency office because Doug Ford, and probably in the province that you're listening in, I'm guessing there's the same sort of lack of services for your kids who have autism. And so the Ford government overpromised and has vastly underperformed on that front. And Stacey, you're going to stay there until you get what from Doug Ford? What are you looking for from Doug Ford? Because you have a child, you're spending $25,000 out of pocket on your autistic child every year?
Not every year. We have, been told by our medical team, we've been told by the government that help is coming. And it's been over 4 years. I mean, I don't know what to say anymore. It hasn't been every year because we don't have that kind of money out of pocket.
Yeah.
We did not, when we became parents in Ontario, no one said, put 40 to 80 grand aside for health care every year. And I say health care because my kid is a sick kids patient. And he was referred into our community by healthcare professionals. So, it's devastating. I don't want to do this, but I've begged for help hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And our families and my family has been shuffled from healthcare to community service, from community service to healthcare, to the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, and back and forth and round and round and round we go. And I've been advocating directly to the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. And as of last week, as we plead our case, they said, best of luck to you. We've provided you one-time funding. The thing that Doug Ford and his cabinet said was such a bad plan, and parents were on the front lawn of Queen's Park saying, this is unsuitable for our children. And they continue to do. And it's a slush fund. And it's not what my kid needs. And I'm sitting here because...
So they give you this one-time payment thinking that, hey, it's better than nothing. And meanwhile, if you're actually going to get the care that your kid, your child deserves, it's just a drop in the bucket, right?
Absolutely. I always tell, some friends and family who might not be able to compare it, that imagine, you need a knee replacement. And instead of giving you what you need, the government says, here's the money. It's nothing what you need, but good luck.
It's like saying, hey, I need a new car, and your car is going to cost, I don't know, what does a cheap new car cost now? $35,000? And they give you $5,000 and say, hey, we're contributing to the care that you need for your child.
Imagine a government saying, we're going to make healthcare better, and then closing every doctor's office, every hospital, every walk-in clinic, and saying, oh, well, you're out of luck. Something is better than nothing. Can
I ask you, just because this is a national program, do you know what the service would be in other provinces? Are there best case scenarios or best practices that Ontario should be following?
Ontario had the leading program in Canada. Doug Ford and his government dismantled it. As Canadians saw in the media before the pandemic, of parents, of advocates being on the lawn at Queen's Park, time and time and time again, being outside of constituency offices, was because they dismantled what was the leading program in Canada. And this government figuratively firebombed 20 years of infrastructure. And now they're going to, and I say this with air quotes, rebuild it. As the parent of an autistic child, I'm angry. As a taxpayer, I'm horrified at the way that they continue to go along with what they said 2 years ago was a horrible idea.
How long are you going to do this? Because I'm actually probably not being very helpful right now, giving you airtime. Just because if you're going to do this for a long time, you're going to need to sleep and you're going to need to stay healthy. So, when are you planning on sleeping?
I've got a good hour in the last little bit. I'll continue to be here. I, sat outside of my van with my, mom camping chair until around 1 o'clock, and then it got cold. So I'm sitting in my van with my sleeping bag and my pillow. I don't know. I don't want to say I'm desperate, but I need people to realize the barriers that our families face. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times I've asked for help for a kid who was just so amazing. If I could introduce you to my son, Sam, he's just the best thing that ever happened to us. And to think that I need to tell people I have done so much to advocate for this amazing, amazing kid. But I shouldn't have to beg in this way. If my kid wasn't autistic, he'd be getting help in the healthcare system. But he is autistic, and he's put in this bucket of healthcare where we are treated like we are these entitled individuals, and we're not. We're moms and dads and aunties and grandmas and neighbors of these amazing children who just deserve so much more than society values them for, And I don't know how long I'm going to sit here. Someone from the constituency office came out and said, you're not going to accomplish anything doing this. You know that, right?
Really? Did you get that person's name?
I did. I'm not going to share that name, but...
Could you share it with us off the air, and I'll send somebody an email?
Yeah, I'll do that for sure.
Do you have a website, or do you have social media that is do you have a Twitter feed? You should get a Twitter.
I'm on Twitter. My Twitter feed is at Mrs. Marambio, and that's MARAMBIO.
Are you? I'm going to write it down wrong. Are you following me?
I am following you.
Okay, so just send me a little note. Just send me a little note. Direct message me, and I will try to get you as much attention as I can in Ontario.
I appreciate that. I want Ontarians to understand that, imagine your only worry was a pandemic. That, the barriers that people are experiencing during this devastating time are what many families experience on a regular basis when it comes to trying to access healthcare and education and community services and daycare and summer camp and programs at your local library.
Yeah.
Society is not equitable if it takes a family 10 phone calls, 20 phone calls, 400 phone calls to access the same things you as an individual in this province experience. And those are the barriers that people have in this province that no one ever talks about.
Stacey, I'm up against a break.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, I hope that we don't have to talk to you again, meaning I hope you get some answer that you are looking for, but I will talk to you again later next week if you're still out there. Give me your Twitter address, and we will share that and share different posts. Keep that stuff coming on Twitter, because people can share it and all sorts of stuff. And get some sleep as well, please.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Stacey Kennedy fighting for her child who needs help. She's autistic.
The Late Showgram with Jim Richards on the iHeartRadio Talk Network.
I fail people a lot because I'm in Ontario and I'll see some stories and I neglect to realize that this is a national show all the time. Maybe I make it a little too Ontario-y, but I think that if you're a mother or you're a family member of somebody who's autistic, you can recognize in your province that what's going on in Ontario in terms of funding programs for autistic kids, it's not only an Ontario story. So I thought Stacey's story is powerful in how she's advocating for her child. So yesterday, I told the story of my friends have cameras in their house, and they told me, hey, remember that time you were over at our house? We had video of you picking your nose. And I was like, okay. I don't know why you would need to compile that and document it, but fine. But I asked a follow-up question, is that all, just a pic? And they're like, yeah, just a pic. You wiped it in a serviette. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But why? So I got a lot of people saying, well, one person saying, well, don't knock it because it's good for you. And they included a whole bunch of links, which I clicked on, and it does look like somebody's done the journalism and done the science on whether or not it is good or bad for you. But I thought we have to get a definitive answer on whether or not picking your nose and eating it is good or bad for you. So, I mean, I summarily wanted to say that it was a bad idea, but Dan Riskin interrupted me, our science guy, and said,
maybe we should recommend it. Let's see where the science takes us.
All right. Let's see where the science takes us.
Let's be open-minded, right?
Maybe it cures COVID.
Yeah. If it cures COVID, call me Miles Davis or whatever the line is. No, absolutely. You have to come at it with an open mind. So let's put our societal expectations aside and let's just talk about the facts. So it turns out that there is a dearth of information about what really the deal is on whether that's bad or good. So let's look at what's out there. What's out there is that some people have compulsive nose picking. That's where you just cannot get your hand away from your nose and you're picking it constantly. Rhinotelexomania.
Wow.
Is the name of that. Yeah. So if you're one of those people that right now, as you listen, has got your fingers deep inside your nose, you may have rhinotelexomania.
That's my demographic. So you be nice to them, Dan. I'm kidding.
I will.
Listen, there's some people out there who goes, he really thinks that of us. I do not. But continue, Dan.
No. Of course.
Yeah.
You think, of course. Now, it reminds me, there's that Seinfeld joke about the fact that when you get a nose job, it's called rhinoplasty.
Okay.
He says, don't you think they feel bad enough calling them rhinos? Anyway, rhino does mean nose, right? That's where it comes from.
Okay.
So rhinotelexomania is the compulsive nose picking. But so, kids obviously are doing this all the time because when you're a baby or a kid, you're like exploring the world. Snot's coming out of kids like it's their job. They're wiping it all the time. They're licking their fingers. And, a lot of kids go down that road of like eating boogers, sticking their finger up their nose, licking that. It's a normal part of child development. And a lot of people believe that it's a healthy part of child development in that it gives them a way to sample bacteria from the environment and take in small bits of it so that their immune systems can see it. So the point of mucus in your nose is that you inhale and a whole bunch of dust and bacteria and viruses and stuff that would go right into your lungs get stopped. They get stuck in the mucus and they get trapped there. And then that mucus kind of drips out or whatever, or hardens and comes out. And then, all those bacteria never made it to your lungs. And, that's one way that mucus, helps you out. But the other thing mucus is always doing is like lubricating your whole, system in your face. And there is tons and tons of mucus that's going down the back of your throat all the time that you're just drinking constantly. You're just swallowing that. So it's disgusting, but kind of we're all drinking mucus all the time anyway. But there's something about taking the booger out of your face and then putting it back in that seems to cross some kind of a line for people. So there's a guy at the University of Saskatchewan.
I just want to repeat what you just said. So you're saying that we're always kind of eating boogers just by the mere fact that we're always kind of eating this mucus. And so to be that freaked out about it, even though it seems pretty uncouth and you don't want your kids doing it in public or ever, it's probably as natural as the other things.
Right. I mean, a little bit like we are all eating booger all the time. If you consider the stuff that's at the back of your throat that's mucus, if you call that booger, I mean, booger is not that well defined. And by the way, Canadians apparently say booger in a way that makes Americans laugh.
Oh, really?
Americans say booger, like bugger. I don't know. I gotta get my wife to say it to me.
I gotta get Johnny Fever.
When Canadians say booger, the Americans think that's hilarious, by the way. So that's just for one to pull out at a party when you're in the States. Don't pull out a booger at a party. Just pull out the word booger. Although, you know what? It's Canadians. I feel like we need to live on the edge a little.
Sure.
Maybe pull out a booger. Anyway, there's this guy, Scott Napper, at the University of Saskatchewan. He's a biochemistry prof. He also works at the Virology Institute there. He knows his immune system stuff, and he's also won a bunch of teaching awards. And one of the things he's famous for, in fact, if you Google him, the pictures that come up all have like him pretending to pick his nose, because he challenges his class with this. He goes up and he says, look, I believe that it's probably good for you to eat boogers, and here's why. And he puts forth this hypothesis that you're sampling the bacteria that got trapped there, and you're helping your body see that stuff in your immune system. And so he's got ideas for experiments, and he really never like makes that part of his research, but he challenges the students to question their assumptions and says, you know, I'm going to take a stand and say, I think it's probably good for you. I'm not saying it's socially good for you. I'm not saying you're going to make more friends this way, but from a pure health perspective, I have a hard time believing it's bad for you, and it may in fact even be good for you.
Wow. Okay. So there you go. That's not a green light or anything, as you say, socially unacceptable.
So, yes. I mean, I think it's really interesting why we think it's so disgusting. And I do think it's disgusting, but why do I think it's disgusting, right? It's like, you know, usually people have a visceral reaction to something if it's dangerous, like the idea of dangling off a bridge or, you know, like tightrope walking or something makes me feel queasy because I think I might fall or the person might fall. But when you see disgusting things, it's often an evolutionary reaction that's protecting you from getting sick. So like if you see a big steaming dog poop on the sidewalk, you don't want to lick it. And that's evolution protecting you from bacteria, right? Like you have a visceral reaction that you don't want to lick dog poop. So I wonder what the connection is with when you see somebody picking their nose and eating it, you know, like maybe that sort of like triggers a response, like that person's probably spreading a lot of bacteria. That's probably spreading a lot of viruses. That person, God, in the COVID world, I don't want to go anywhere near that person. And that's probably where it comes from. And that's probably why people would socially distance from anyone who's picking their nose.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to think about why there's that connection when in fact, it's not bad for the person doing it, but maybe it does spread more disease. So it's fun to ponder. It's the kind of thing you can think about while you're, I don't know, just picking away at life and questions that get you.
Dan, it's good, but I guess we're arguing that it's not bad for you and possibly could be good, right?
Yeah, I'm saying it's probably not bad for the person doing it, but that it might be bad in terms of a social activity.
Sure.
Like it may be bad in terms of spreading germs.
But sorry, are we discounting the fact that, hey, we live in a society where we're, hand sanitizer all the time pre-COVID and everybody's squeaky clean, and so the booger eater might be healthier for those reasons? Is that just something that we're discounting, or?
No, I think that could be valid. I mean, there are a lot of people that believe we live in too clean a world, especially kids, and that their immune systems are a little hyperactive as a result, and that's why they're maybe, allergic to more things than they would have been in previous generations, and maybe dirtier kids would do better. But, there's a limit to everything, and so you don't want to, throw the baby out with the bathwater in the sense of don't get sick on purpose, but maybe a little dust isn't so bad for you. I don't know whether picking your nose and eating it is the kind of thing you want to encourage your kids to do, because I mean the big thing is they're going to get they're going to have a socially hard time if they're the kids that's eating their boogers in the back.
And there you go, folks. Leave it to Dan and myself to do the journalism on picking your nose and eating it.